Hey guys, tonight we're going to take a very slow stroll through the sands of time, back to a land where giants were built by hand, and dreams, well, dreams were practically architectural blueprints. Imagine, if you will, the vast, silent desert. The only sound the soft whisper of the wind carrying ancient secrets. You're lying there, perhaps on a reed mat, the scent of dried papyrus in the air, contemplating the colossal stones that rose into the sky, block by agonizing block. And as your eyelids grow heavy, you start to wonder, what did the people who built these marvels dream about? What visions flickered behind the closed eyes of a pharaoh, a stonemason, or even a humble farmer, as the very concept of immortality took physical form around them? Honestly, if you had to live with dust in every crevice and the constant threat of a falling granite slab, you'd probably dream of air conditioning and a comfy recliner. But alas, they didn't have those. You'd probably not survive 5 minutes. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're up for it, drop a comment below telling me where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. We're going to glide gently back, thousands of years, to the banks of the Nile, where the rhythm of life was dictated by the sun and the sacred river. You're there standing, or rather slowly sinking into a comfortable position, at the foot of what will become an unimaginable structure, a monumental undertaking of human will and spiritual belief. The air is warm, thick with the scent of dust and distant cooking fires. You can almost feel the grit beneath your feet, a constant companion to everyone who lived and worked in this sun-drenched land. It's not the bustling, vibrant market you see in documentaries. This is the quiet, winding down of the day, when shadows lengthen and the desert truly begins to breathe. As the last rays of the sun paint the sky in hues of orange and purple, you observe the people around you. They aren't just figures in a history book. They are individuals, each carrying the weight of their day, their hopes, and yes, their exhaustion. Imagine the subtle hum of conversations dying down, the clink of tools being set aside, the soft shuffling of bare feet on sand. This wasn't a land of perpetual excitement. It was a land of routine, of hard work, and of an unwavering belief in a divine order that spanned both waking and sleeping worlds. The sheer scale of the pyramid project is almost unfathomable, even today. You look up, trying to picture how mere humans, without the heavy machinery we take for granted, could possibly stack millions of limestone blocks, each weighing as much as a modern car. It's enough to make your brain feel a little fuzzy, isn't it? And as your own eyelids start to feel heavy, you might just begin to appreciate the true value of a good night's sleep in ancient Egypt. For them, it wasn't just about physical rest. It was a journey, a conversation with the divine, and sometimes a preview of what was to come. Many ancient Egyptians believed sleep was a temporary death, a brief sojourn into the duat, the underworld, before returning refreshed at dawn. It made morning coffee seem a bit dramatic, didn't it? It's a fascinating thought, isn't it? That for all their technological limitations, their understanding of the human mind and its nocturnal wanderings was, in some ways, far more nuanced than we often give them credit for. They didn't have therapists to analyze their dreams, but they had something arguably more profound, a cultural framework that embraced dreams as legitimate, meaningful experiences. This wasn't just about having a weird dream after eating too much lentil stew. These dreams had purpose, meaning, and often practical implications for their daily lives and the grand projects they undertook. So, as the stars slowly begin to prick the deep blue canvas of the desert sky, and the distant bark of a jackal echoes softly, we're settling into this ancient stillness. You're not just listening to a story, you're gently sinking into an echo of a time when the boundary between waking and dreaming was beautifully, mysteriously blurred. And it was within this blurring, this fascinating twilight state, that some of the most enduring symbols of their civilization, like the very pyramids themselves, found their earliest whispers of existence. The popular belief that dreams were merely random firings of the brain, that would have been a rather un-Egyptian thought. Historians still debate the exact mechanisms by which the Egyptians recorded and interpreted their dreams, but the evidence from papyri to temple inscriptions paints a clear picture. Dreams mattered. They weren't just fleeting images. They were messages, warnings, promises. And for a pharaoh whose every action had cosmic repercussions, a dream could be nothing less than a divine decree, a whisper from Ra himself. Imagine the pressure. It's like getting a text from your boss at 3 a.m. with cryptic instructions, but instead of finish that report, it's build a monument to the sun god, make it pointy. Good luck with that interpretation. The world around you is quieting down even further. You can almost feel the coolness of the desert night beginning to settle, a welcome respite from the day's heat. The air is still, the distant chatter of a few remaining families fading into the vastness. It's the perfect setting to ponder how such a civilization, so focused on the tangible and the monumental, also placed such immense importance on the ethereal and the unseen, particularly within the realm of dreams. This wasn't just superstition, it was an integral part of their worldview, as foundational as the bedrock upon which their grandest structures were built. And as you allow your thoughts to drift, you might begin to sense the sheer quiet determination that must have underpinned everything they did. From the first conceptual spark of a pyramid to its final gleaming capstone, every step was imbued with meaning, often derived from sources we modern folk might dismiss as mere fantasy, but for them it was reality, as solid and unyielding as the granite they hold. Perhaps as you drift closer to your own slumber, you'll find yourself wondering what ancient whispers might reach your dreams tonight. As the first hint of morning twilight brushes the eastern horizon, you're not quite ready to wake, but the quiet sounds of the camp are already beginning to stir. You hear the rustle of straw, the soft murmurs of voices, and the distant rhythmic thud, thud, thud of tools being readied. For the thousands of men and women who toiled on the Great Pyramid projects, the cycle of sleep and wakefulness was brutally simple. Rest when you can, work when the sun demands it. There was no hitting the snooze button on the ancient Egyptian alarm clock. The sun was their ultimate timekeeper. Imagine waking on a thin reed mat, the ground still cool from the night, your muscles aching from the previous day's labor. You stretch, perhaps with a groan, feeling every inch of your body protesting. It's not unlike how you might feel after a particularly enthusiastic gym session, only their gym involved dragging multi-ton stones across vast distances. You rub, the sleep from your eyes, noticing the fine layer of desert dust that seems to cling to everything, including your eyelashes. Forget Egyptian cotton. Egyptian dust was the real constant in their lives. Your morning ritual would be swift and functional. A quick splash of water from a shared pot, a few bites of coarse bread and perhaps some onions or garlic. This wasn't a leisurely brunch, it was fuel. Every calorie counted, every movement was purposeful. You lace up your simple sandals, or perhaps you go barefoot, feeling the cool sand give way to the warming ground beneath you. The air, initially crisp, already hints at the oppressive heat that will soon blanket the work site. You glance towards the massive structure, still silhouetted against the pre-dawn sky. A silent, imposing giant. It never seemed to get smaller, did it? It was a bit like staring at your never-ending to-do list, only made of stone. You join your work gang, the camaraderie a silent comfort. There's a shared understanding, a mutual respect born of common hardship. You pick up your tools, a wooden mallet, a copper chisel, perhaps a rope woven from papyrus. These aren't just instruments of labor, they are extensions of your will, your contribution to something far greater than yourself. You imagine the conversations, low and grumbling at first, slowly picking up as the caffeine of physical exertion kicks in. Except, of course, they didn't have coffee. So it was more like the caffeine of, if I don't move this, I don't eat. Quite the motivator. As the sun begins its slow ascent, painting the desert in stark contrasts of light and shadow, you begin your work. Perhaps you're part of a team, dragging massive blocks up a ramp, the ropes biting into your shoulders, the air filled with the grunts of effort and the shouted commands of overseers. Or maybe you're in the quarry chipping away at the stone, the repetitive clink, clink, clink of hammer on chisel, a monotonous symphony. This was the popular image of pyramid building, and for good reason. It was incredibly demanding physical labor. It wasn't exactly a spa day, was it? But here's a curious fact that often gets overlooked. These weren't slaves in the brutal Roman sense. Many were skilled laborers, farmers fulfilling their civic duty during the Nile's flood season when fields were submerged. They were organized into highly efficient teams, lived in well-provisioned villages, and even received medical care. Imagine having a doctor on site for your chronic back pain from hauling giant rocks. Modern construction sites could take a page from their ancient playbook. This wasn't a punishment, it was a societal contribution, albeit a rather strenuous one. Historians still debate the exact organization of the workforces. Was it truly voluntary, or was there an element of social coercion? The truth likely lies somewhere in the middle, but what's undeniable is the sheer human effort involved, day in and day out, under the scorching sun. You can almost feel the sweat trickling down your brow, the dust coating your throat, the endless grinding repetition of lift, pull, push, repeat. It's the kind of work that makes you appreciate the sweet, sweet release of lying down at the end of the day. You might find a moment for a quick rest, leaning against a cool stone, sharing a meager meal with your comrades. There's probably a light-hearted joke about the heat, or a good-natured jab about someone's clumsy footwork. Even in such demanding conditions, humor was a vital coping mechanism. Laughter, even a tired chuckle, was probably as essential as water. You might even steal a brief, blissful power nap right there on the scorching sand, just for a few precious minutes of oblivion before the whistle, or more likely, the bellow, of an overseer snaps you back to reality. It's a reminder that no matter the era, a nap is always a good idea. As the sun begins its slow descent, casting long dramatic shadows across the desert floor, the pace of work gradually winds down. You feel the collective sigh of relief ripple through the camp. Your body screams for rest, your mind craves the quiet oblivion of sleep. You gather your tools, dusty and weary, and make your way back to your simple dwelling. The air is still warm, but a subtle coolness begins to creep in, promising the sweet relief of the desert night. The day's toil is done, and the unspoken thought on everyone's mind is the same: sleep, glorious, dream-filled sleep. The sun has finally dipped below the horizon, and the oppressive heat of the day slowly begins to recede, replaced by the desert's cool, comforting embrace. You've made your way back to your modest dwelling, a small mud-brick home shared with your family or fellow workers. The air inside is still warm, but you can feel the subtle shift as the night's chill starts to seep in, a welcome sensation after hours under the relentless glare. Your eyelids feel heavy, not just from the day's physical exertion, but from a profound weariness that seeps into your very bones. This isn't the kind of fatigue a quick nap can fix. This calls for true, deep Egyptian slumber. For the ancient Egyptians, sleep wasn't merely an absence of wakefulness. It was a profound state, a nightly journey, almost a mini-death before the glorious rebirth of dawn. They believed that during sleep, your soul or personality, could leave your body and wander, sometimes encountering gods, sometimes visiting the underworld, sometimes just having a good old-fashioned wander around the neighborhood. It put a whole new spin on sleepwalking, didn't it? Imagine your bee just popping out for a midnight snack. So how did they prepare for this nightly adventure? It wasn't about counting sheep, although considering the abundance of livestock, it wouldn't have been a bad idea. For the common person, like yourself, your bed was often a simple reed mat spread on the floor, perhaps with a linen sheet if you were lucky. Comfort was practical, not luxurious. Your pillow? Oh, that's where it gets interesting. Forget your plush memory foam. Theirs was typically a headrest made of wood, stone, or sometimes ivory, curved to cradle the neck. It might sound incredibly uncomfortable to your modern neck, accustomed to soft, squishy pillows, but its purpose wasn't softness. It was designed to elevate the head, protect it from insects, and perhaps to allow the breath of life to flow freely, ensuring a safe return of the BA. It's almost like a very minimalist ancient neck brace, but with spiritual undertones. The wealthier Egyptians, of course, had more elaborate arrangements. You might imagine a pharaoh sprawling on a bed of gold, but even for them, beds were often raised platforms, sometimes decorated with intricate carvings or even gold leaf. They might have a linen mattress stuffed with wool or feathers, providing a touch more luxury than your reed mat. But even their beds featured those distinctive, hard headrests, proving that some ancient comforts were universally, shall we say, firm. It makes you wonder if they ever woke up with a crick in their neck, muttering about historical chiropractors. The ritual of preparing for sleep would often involve simple acts of cleansing. You might pour water over your hands and feet, washing away the dust and grime of the day. There were no elaborate nightly skincare routines, no serums, no toners, no 10-step K-beauty regimens. Their focus was on purity, both physical and spiritual, ensuring you were ready for your soul's nightly excursion. Imagine trying to explain your entire nightly routine to an ancient Egyptian. They'd probably just nod politely and wonder why you were doing so much just to go to sleep. They didn't have bedside lamps, but oil lamps or small torches might have cast flickering shadows on the walls, creating a hypnotic dance that could lull you into a drowsy state. The air might be infused with subtle scents, perhaps a bit of frankincense or myrrh, burned gently to purify the air and aid relaxation. These weren't just pleasant smells. They were believed to invite benevolent spirits and ward off any less than friendly entities that might try to mess with your bia during its travels. It's like ancient aromatherapy, but with higher stakes. Historians still debate the exact prevalence of various sleeping aids or rituals across different social classes. While we have beautiful artifacts from tombs depicting elaborate beds, it's harder to gauge the everyday realities for the vast majority of the population. But one thing is clear: sleep was taken seriously. It wasn't just a biological necessity, it was a spiritual opportunity, a daily death and rebirth that reinforced their cyclical view of existence. It was a time to connect with the divine, to reflect and perhaps to receive guidance. As you finally lie down on your mat, the coolness of the evening air seeping into your weary limbs, you feel a profound sense of release. The day's aches slowly begin to subside. You close your eyes, the last flickering light from a distant lamp dancing behind your eyelids. The quiet murmur of the camp eventually fades into the gentle hum of the desert night. You are ready to surrender to the ancient Egyptian art of sleep, preparing for whatever journey your bar might embark on, perhaps even a visit to the construction site of the pyramids, this time from a different, less strenuous perspective. And, as your breath deepens, you can almost feel the gentle separation, the quiet lifting of your spirit, ready to wander through the mystical landscape of dreams. As you drift deeper into the ancient Egyptian night, your own modern mind, perhaps still buzzing with the day's trivialities, begins to quiet. You're entering a realm where the pharaohs, those living gods, held sway not just over their vast kingdom, but, they believed, over the very fabric of reality itself, including the messages hidden in their dreams. For a pharaoh, a dream wasn't just a random series of images. It was often seen as a direct communication from the divine, a sacred oracle. Imagine waking up and wondering if that dream about a giant marshmallow meant a good harvest or a massive flood. The stakes were considerably higher for a pharaoh. The popular belief of the time, deeply ingrained in their spiritual worldview, was that the gods, like Ra, the sun god, or Osiris, the god of the afterlife, frequently communicated through visions while one slept, and if anyone was privy to these celestial whispers, it was the pharaoh. Their dreams were not merely personal, they were national. A pharaoh's dream could dictate policy, launch construction projects, or even avert a perceived disaster. It's like your CEO having a dream about a new product, only their product is a colossal stone monument designed to last for millennia. No pressure there. Take, for instance, the famous dream stele of Thutmose IV, which you might have seen depicted in some documentaries. The story goes that while a young prince, Thutmose fell asleep near the Great Sphinx, which at the time was largely buried in sand. In his dream, the Sphinx, embodying the god Horemheb, appeared to him and promised him the throne of Egypt if he would clear away the sand that was suffocating it. Thutmose, upon waking, promptly began the arduous task, and sure enough, he eventually became pharaoh. Now, whether this was a genuine prophetic dream or a clever piece of political propaganda to legitimize his reign, he wasn't the direct heir, you see. It certainly worked. It's a classic case of dream it, build it, but with considerably more land and fewer power tools. This wasn't an isolated incident. Throughout Egyptian history, pharaohs often recorded their dreams, especially those that seemed to hold significant meaning. These weren't scribbled hastily on a napkin by the bed. They were meticulously carved onto stele or written on papyrus scrolls intended for posterity. They became part of the official narrative, weaving the divine into the very fabric of their rule. You might have a dream about being late for work. They dreamed about divine endorsements for their monumental building projects. Priorities, right? Historians still debate the degree to which these documented dreams were authentic personal experiences or carefully constructed political narratives designed to bolster a pharaoh's authority. Perhaps it was a bit of both. It's plausible that a ruler, constantly surrounded by religious belief and under immense pressure to deliver prosperity and order, genuinely believed in the divine guidance of their nocturnal visions. Maybe, just maybe, they realized that a well-placed dream about a divine directive could rally the populace more effectively than any royal decree. A truly fascinating psychological chess game, played out in the realm of sleep. You can almost feel the weight of such responsibility. Imagine being a pharaoh, knowing that your nightly subconscious wanderings could literally determine the fate of your kingdom, or at least the next massive construction project. You'd probably try to eat light before bed, wouldn't you? No spicy lentil soup for you, not when the future of the Nile Valley depends on a clear, divinely inspired dream. It wasn't just about avoiding indigestion, it was about ensuring spiritual reception. The dreams of the pharaohs about the pyramids themselves would have been particularly potent. Were they visions of the completed structures, gleaming white under the sun? Or perhaps more symbolic, abstract dreams of permanence, of ascension, of a ladder to the stars? The very concept of the pyramid as a stairway to heaven or a resurrection machine was deeply rooted in their cosmology. It's not a stretch to imagine that these profound theological ideas might manifest in the royal dreams, guiding the architectural decisions, the alignment with celestial bodies, and the sheer unyielding ambition of these projects. As your own thoughts begin to blur, you might sense the profound calm that must have descended upon a pharaoh as they drifted into sleep, confident in their divine connection. They were not merely rulers, they were intermediaries, and their dreams were the sacred conduits. You can almost hear the soft, rhythmic breathing of the sleeping king, surrounded by the silent majesty of their palace, awaiting the whispers of the gods that would shape not just their tomorrow, but the eternal landscape of Egypt itself. It was a rather impressive way to plan a construction project, don't you think? Better than a committee meeting anyway. As the night deepens around you, and the last of the desert wind sighs softly past your dwelling, your mind, now steeped in the quiet mysteries of ancient Egypt, begins to contemplate how these elusive nocturnal messages, these dreams, were actually deciphered. For a society so reliant on divine will, simply having a dream wasn't enough. Understanding it was paramount. This is where the ancient Egyptian dream interpreters stepped in, a specialized and rather fascinating profession. They were less like modern therapists and more like spiritual decoders, trying to untangle the cryptic symbols of the subconscious. The most popular means of interpreting dreams was through what we now call dream books or dream papyri. Imagine, if you will, a collection of scrolls meticulously detailing various dream scenarios and their corresponding meanings. It's like an ancient dream dictionary for dummies, but with hieroglyphs and a lot more divine intervention. One of the most famous examples is the Chester Beatty Papyrus III, a rather well-preserved document that lists a series of dreams and their interpretations, often categorized as good or bad. So if you dreamed of seeing a cat, that was generally a good sign, but if you dreamed of seeing a dead cat, well, that was probably not great news. It makes you wonder if they ever had a dream about forgetting their toga at the annual Nile festival. The papyrus is oddly silent on that. These dream books weren't just random musings. They often paired a dream image with its symbolic meaning, drawing heavily on the rich tapestry of Egyptian mythology, daily life, and the natural world. Dreaming of the Nile overflowing, for instance, might be a good omen for prosperity. Dreaming of a serpent, however, could be a bit more ambiguous, sometimes representing protection, other times a threat. It really depended on whether the snake was wearing a little tiny crown or not. The interpretation wasn't always straightforward. It required a deep understanding of the symbolic language and often a bit of intuition. Priests, particularly those associated with temples and healing, frequently served as these dream interpreters. They were considered wise and connected to the divine, making them ideal candidates to mediate between the sleeping mind and the gods. You can imagine a pharaoh or a nobleman waking in a cold sweat, immediately summoning a priest to unravel the meaning of their perplexing nocturnal vision. So, about that dream where I was a giant scarab beetle rolling the sun across the sky, good or bad for the harvest, O wise one? Here's a curious little fact. Sometimes, if a dream was particularly ominous, the dream book might prescribe a ritual to cancel or reverse the bad omen. This could involve special prayers, offerings, or even performing specific actions while awake, like drawing the dream on your hand and then washing it off with water. It was a bit like ancient undo button for your subconscious. Imagine if you could just wash away your Monday morning dread after dreaming about your alarm clock. Historians still debate the extent to which these dream interpretations were standardized across Egypt, or varied significantly by region and individual interpreter. While the papyri provide a fascinating glimpse, they are likely just a small fraction of the dream interpretations that occurred daily. The personal connection between the dreamer and the interpreter, and the specific context of the dream within the dreamer's life, probably played a huge role too. It's hard to generalize when you're dealing with the deeply personal landscape of the human mind, even an ancient one. You can almost feel the quiet intensity in the room as a dream was being interpreted. The low murmur of the priest's voice, perhaps the soft rustle of a papyrus scroll as they carefully unrolled it, searching for parallels. The air might have been thick with incense, helping to create an atmosphere of reverence and focus. This wasn't just a casual chat about your weird dream. It was a serious consultation with potential ramifications for your future, your health, or even the prosperity of your nation. As your own thoughts continue to wander, consider the weight of belief they placed on these interpretations. For them, dreams were not fleeting illusions. They were a legitimate source of knowledge, a window into the divine realm. And in a world where the gods were believed to be intimately involved in every aspect of life, understanding their nocturnal messages was as crucial as understanding the annual flooding of the Nile. It was a rather sophisticated system, even if some of the interpretations sound a bit whimsical to our modern ears. It certainly beats trying to find meaning in your dream about being chased by a giant broccoli. The gentle hum of the desert night continues, a soothing backdrop as your mind drifts from the grand pronouncements of pharaonic dreams to the more personal, often whimsical visions of the everyday ancient Egyptian. Because while a pharaoh's dream might dictate the building of a colossal monument, a common person's dream was far more likely to involve, well, relatable daily annoyances or simple joys. Imagine dreaming of your donkey finally cooperating or finding an extra loaf of bread. For them, these small nocturnal triumphs or tribulations were just as real. You might find yourself drifting into a dream similar to those recorded on ancient papyri. Perhaps you're dreaming of seeing a tall, healthy palm tree, heavy with dates. For an ancient Egyptian, this wasn't just a nice visual, it was likely interpreted as a good omen for prosperity and abundance. Or maybe you're dreaming of fishing in the Nile, pulling in a net full of plump fish. Another excellent sign suggesting good fortune and plenty. It makes you wonder if anyone ever dreamed of winning the ancient Egyptian lottery, which was probably just finding a really shiny pebble. But dreams weren't always sunny, just like today ancient Egyptians had their share of nightmares and perplexing visions. Imagine dreaming of your house collapsing. That would certainly wake you in a sweat. The dream books often listed such scenarios, typically interpreting them as bad omens, perhaps foretelling illness or misfortune. If you dreamed of drinking warm beer, which, let's be honest, sounds like a nightmare even today, it might symbolize illness. Dreaming of seeing yourself naked was often a sign of being abandoned. It sounds a bit like modern social anxiety, doesn't it? Just without the internet to share it on. Here's a curious little detail. If you dreamed of seeing your own reflection in water, it was usually a positive sign indicating good health and longevity. It suggests they had a fairly robust sense of self-awareness, or perhaps just appreciated a clear view of their meticulously coal-lined eyes. This attention to detail in dream interpretation, even for seemingly mundane events, shows just how deeply integrated dreams were into their daily lives and decision-making processes. It wasn't just for the big grand prophecies, it was for the small stuff too. Historians still debate the degree to which ordinary Egyptians actively sought out professional dream interpreters for every small dream. It's likely that many common, symbolic dreams were interpreted within the family or community, passed down through generations. Only the most perplexing or unsettling dreams might warrant a visit to a temple priest. It's a bit like how you might ask a friend about a weird dream before escalating it to a full-blown therapy session. You can almost feel the gentle ripple of amusement or concern that might spread through a family as they shared their dreams over a simple morning meal. I dreamt of a giant hippopotamus wearing a tiny crown again. Someone might chuckle, while another would gravely interpret it as a sign of impending rain. These were shared experiences, contributing to the collective understanding of their world and the subtle messages within it. It reinforced their communal bonds, a bit like a very, very old social media feed, but with more papyrus. As your own consciousness drifts, you might picture these scenes vividly. A family gathered, the oil lamp casting soft shadows as someone recounts a dream of flying like a falcon over the Nile, or perhaps a comical dream of their donkey talking back to them. These were the moments where the line between the sacred and the mundane blurred, where the everyday person could glimpse the hidden meanings of their existence through the strange, vivid tapestry of their nocturnal wanderings. And it's in these quiet, personal moments that you truly understand the universality of dreams, transcending thousands of years and vast cultural divides. After all, who hasn't dreamed of something utterly ridiculous yet surprisingly profound right before waking up? The desert night deepens further, a tapestry of stars slowly appearing above you. And as you lie there gently sinking into the story, your thoughts drift to the more tangible influences on ancient Egyptian sleep, what they ate and drank. Because, let's be honest, a heavy meal or a certain beverage before bed can profoundly impact your dreams, even thousands of years ago. Imagine having a vivid dream about a giant, talking scarab beetle and then trying to remember if it was the lentil, stew or the date wine that caused it. The staple diet of ancient Egyptians was fairly simple, centered around bread and beer. And while beer might sound like a recipe for restless sleep today, their beer was different. It was thick, nutritious, more like a liquid bread, often low in alcohol content, and probably consumed throughout the day, not just as a nightcap. It provided calories and hydration, and perhaps in smaller quantities, a mild calming effect before bed. It certainly wasn't the kind of potent brew that would have you waking up with a pyramid-sized headache. They also ate a lot of vegetables, onions, garlic, leeks, lettuce, and various legumes. Lentils and chickpeas were common, providing a good source of protein. Fish from the Nile was a regular part of their diet, especially for those living near the river. For the wealthier, meat like beef, goat, or poultry was a luxury. Imagine trying to fall asleep after a feast of roast ox. Even ancient digestive systems would have put up a fight. Here's a curious little fact. Lettuce was believed by some ancient Egyptians to be an aphrodisiac, but also, paradoxically, to have sedative properties. So, you might eat lettuce hoping for a romantic evening, only to find yourself drifting off before the candles were even lit. It's like ancient sleep aid with a side of unexpected romance. Talk about mixed signals. This duality highlights how they viewed food as more than just sustenance. It had specific effects on the body and mind. Honey was a natural sweetener and was often mixed with other ingredients to create medicinal remedies or even, perhaps, calming concoctions. Dates were abundant and provided quick energy, but in excess could certainly lead to a sugar rush that might keep you from drifting off peacefully. It makes you wonder if they had their own versions of "don't eat chocolate before bed" warnings, just with figs instead. Historians still debate the specific use of certain herbs or plant extracts as actual sleep aids. While we know they used many plants for medicinal purposes, explicit sleep potion recipes aren't as widely documented as, say, embalming techniques. However, it's reasonable to assume that some natural sedatives, perhaps derived from poppy, or certain types of lotus, might have been known and sparingly used, especially by priests or healers. It's a bit like modern chamomile tea, but perhaps with a slightly more potent kick. You can almost smell the simple, earthy aromas of a typical ancient Egyptian evening meal. The yeasty scent of freshly baked bread, the pungent aroma of onions, perhaps the faint, sweet smell of roasted fish. These were the scents that would linger in the air as you prepared for bed, becoming intertwined with your memories of the day and setting the stage for the night's dreams. It's a far cry from the complex, artificially flavored snacks we reach for today, but perhaps far more conducive to natural, restorative sleep. As your own eyelids grow heavy, you might imagine the subtle rumble of a full stomach, or the gentle warmth of a mild beer aiding your descent into slumber. For the ancient Egyptians, the connection between their physical well-being, their diet, and their spiritual journeys through sleep was profound and deeply understood. They might not have had our scientific understanding of digestion, but they certainly knew that a calm stomach often led to a calm mind, and a calm mind was prime real estate for those precious prophetic dreams. It's a reminder that sometimes the simplest things, like a piece of bread and a quiet evening, are all you need for a good night's rest. No elaborate dream diets required. As your conscious mind slowly gives way to the gentle pull of sleep, your focus subtly shifts from the culinary influences on ancient Egyptian slumber to the very spaces where they laid their weary heads. Forget elaborate bedroom sets and matching nightstands. The ancient Egyptian sleeping environment, while varying in luxury, was primarily designed for practicality, comfort against the elements, and perhaps a touch of spiritual protection. You're settling into your own space now, perhaps feeling the coolness of your bed as you imagine theirs. For the common worker, like those toiling on the pyramids, your bedroom was likely a simple, small chamber within a mud brick house, often shared with family or fellow laborers. The walls would be bare, perhaps plastered with a layer of mud and straw, offering insulation against the brutal heat of the day and the surprising chill of the desert night. There were no windows, or perhaps just a very small opening high on the wall to encourage a cross breeze without letting in too much sun or sand. Privacy, as we understand it today, was a luxury. Imagine trying to get some quiet time for yourself when your entire family is practically in the same room. Your bed, as we briefly touched upon, would be a reed mat spread directly on the hard-packed earth floor. Simple, yes, but effective. It kept you off the dust and provided a thin layer of separation from the ground. For a bit more comfort, you might have laid a woven mat or a thin blanket made of linen on top. And, of course, the ever-present headrest. This wasn't a pillow in the fluffy sense. It was a carved piece of wood, stone, or even ivory, designed to support your neck while keeping your head elevated. It might sound like a medieval torture device to your modern, memory foam accustomed head, but it served a vital purpose, preventing insects and scorpions from crawling into your ears and mouth while you slept, and also perhaps to ensure good airflow for that bay of yours, preventing it from getting stuck on its nightly travels. Practicality triumphs over plushness, wouldn't you say? For the wealthier Egyptians, the sleeping arrangements were predictably a little more opulent. Their homes might feature multiple rooms, allowing for dedicated bedrooms. Their beds were often raised platforms, sometimes made of fine wood like ebony or cedar, intricately carved, and occasionally adorned with gold leaf. These beds might have had frames, and some even had a slight incline for the head. The mattress itself would be more substantial, perhaps stuffed with wool, feathers, or even plant fibers for a softer feel. But even in these luxurious settings, the rigid headrest remained a prominent feature. It seems a good night's sleep, ancient Egyptian style, always came with a side of neck support. Here's a curious fact that often escapes modern notice. Ancient Egyptian homes, even royal palaces, generally lacked built-in ventilation systems like chimneys or complex window setups. They relied on thick walls, small openings, and sometimes clever design to create cooler spaces. Sleeping indoors, especially during the hottest months, could still be quite warm. Many might have opted to sleep on rooftops during scorching summer, nights enjoying the slight breeze and the vast star-filled sky. Imagine drifting off to sleep with the Milky Way stretched out above you, no light pollution to obscure its ancient glory. Historians still debate the exact materials used for all bedding across different social strata. While we have examples of linen sheets and blankets from tombs, it's harder to determine what the average person used for warmth on a cool night. It's likely simple woven wool blankets or even animal hides provided insulation. The emphasis was on function and durability, not necessarily on thread count. As you picture yourself in such a setting, the quiet calm of your imagined Egyptian dwelling, you might appreciate the simplicity of it all. No buzzing electronics, no distracting screens, just the subtle sounds of the night, the feel of the mat beneath you, and the sturdy support of your headrest. The air might carry the faint scent of dried papyrus or perhaps the lingering aroma of the day's cooking. It was a space designed for basic human needs, rest, security, and preparation for the spiritual journey of sleep. You might find it surprisingly appealing after all the modern complexities we surround ourselves with. Maybe a wooden headrest isn't so bad after all, if it guarantees no spider surprises. As the quiet hum of your current surroundings blends with the imagined stillness of an ancient Egyptian night, your senses, now finely tuned, begin to pick up on the subtle symphony of sounds that would have accompanied their descent into slumber. Forget the relentless drone of traffic or the distant blare of a television. The soundscape of ancient Egypt was far more organic, a tapestry of natural rhythms and human whispers, often designed to soothe or, conversely, sometimes interpreted through the lens of a dream. The most prominent sound, especially for those living near the life-giving artery of the Nile, would have been the gentle, rhythmic lapping of water against the riverbanks. It's a natural white noise, constant and calming, a sound that has lulled generations to sleep across continents. You can almost hear it now, a soft, repetitive whisper that mimics the steady rhythm of deep breathing. This wasn't just background noise. It was the pulse of their world, deeply connected to their survival and prosperity. It makes you wonder if anyone ever dreamed of a particularly melodic flood. Beyond the river, the sounds of nature would dominate. The soft rustle of reeds in the breeze, the distant hoot of an owl, perhaps the almost imperceptible scuttling of a desert creature. These weren't sounds of menace, but rather the familiar, reassuring chorus of the natural world winding down for the night. Imagine trying to fall asleep with a noisy neighbor's stereo blasting. They just had the occasional jackal howling at the moon, which is admittedly a bit more dramatic. Human-made sounds were also part of this nocturnal tapestry. Though usually subdued, the distant faint strains of a lyre or a harp, played softly in a wealthier home, might drift through the night air. Music wasn't just for festivities, it was also used for relaxation and spiritual connection. You can almost feel the gentle vibration of the strings, the soothing melody weaving itself into the fabric of the quiet night, guiding thoughts towards tranquility. This was their ancient equivalent of a calming Spotify playlist, but with real instruments and no ads. Here's a curious fact about their musical instruments. Many were designed to be played in a way that mimicked natural sounds or human voices, further enhancing their ability to create a harmonious atmosphere. The sistrum, for example, a rattle-like instrument, was often used in religious ceremonies, but its gentle shaking could also produce a soft, rhythmic sound that might accompany bedtime rituals or lull a child to sleep. It's like a very fancy, a spiritual baby rattle. Historians still debate the extent to which specific lullabies or sleep songs were widely used across all social classes. While we have evidence of hymns and ritualistic chants, explicit songs designed purely for sleep are harder to pinpoint. However, it's highly probable that mothers sang simple, repetitive melodies to their children, much like in any other culture. Throughout history, the human voice, soft and comforting, is a universal sleep aid after all. You can almost feel the gentle breeze that might carry these sounds, rustling through the palm fronds outside your imagined dwelling, creating a natural ASMR experience thousands of years before the term was coined. The lack of artificial light and constant noise meant that their auditory senses were perhaps more finely tuned to these subtle cues of the environment. A sudden silence, a change in the wind, or the distinct call of a night bird could all hold meaning both in waking life and in the often symbolic world of dreams. As your own breathing evens out, you might find yourself picturing a scene, a family nestled in their humble home, the air cooling, the distant sounds of the Nile creating a gentle rhythm. Perhaps a grandparent is softly recounting a myth, their voice a low, soothing drone, weaving tales of gods and heroes into the very fabric of the night. These stories, combined with the gentle sounds of their world, would guide them into slumber, preparing their minds for whatever ethereal adventures awaited their BR in the realm of dreams. It's a beautifully simple, yet profoundly effective way to drift off, don't you think? Far more peaceful than the relentless notifications of modern life. The quiet rhythm of the ancient night continues, and as you find yourself nestled comfortably, your thoughts naturally gravitate towards the gentle, comforting presence that often shared the ancient Egyptian sleeping space. Their animals. Forget your average house cat. In ancient Egypt, the bond with certain creatures, particularly cats, was deep, mystical, and profoundly integrated into their daily lives, including their nocturnal routines. It makes you wonder if these animals too had their own peculiar dreams. Cats, of course, hold a special place in any discussion of ancient Egypt. They weren't just pets. They were revered, almost sacred creatures, associated with deities like Bastet, the goddess of home, fertility, and protection. And while not every household had a fully mummified cat in a golden casket, many common families certainly kept cats, primarily for pest control, chasing away mice, snakes, and scorpions. So imagine a furry guardian, purring softly at the foot of your reed mat, a silent, agile protector against the scuttling things of the night. It's like having a very effective, very ancient security system, but infinitely cuddlier. The presence of a cat would undoubtedly have contributed to a sense of peace and security, essential for a good night's sleep. Their soft purrs, their warm presence, their quiet movements, all would have been incredibly soothing after a long, arduous day. You can almost feel the gentle weight of a cat curling up against your feet, its rhythmic breathing a subtle lullaby. This wasn't just companionship, it was a living embodiment of protection in a world where the unknown dangers of the night were very real. Perhaps they occasionally dreamed of chasing invisible dust bunnies, or perhaps in true cat fashion, of world domination. Here's a curious fact about their animal companions. While cats were universally beloved, dogs also played a significant role, particularly as hunting companions and guards. You might find a dog curled up near the entrance of a dwelling, its keen senses attuned to any unusual sounds. However, dogs, being more outwardly protective, were perhaps less likely to share the intimate sleeping space inside the home as readily as the more independent and self-contained cat. A dog's dream, you might imagine, would involve endless chasing of gazelles across the desert, or perhaps a bottomless bowl of kibble. Historians still debate the exact nuances of pet ownership across different social classes. While we have ample evidence of lavishly pampered pets belonging to the elite, it's harder to pinpoint how many ordinary families could afford or manage to keep animals solely for companionship. However, practical animals like cats, for pest, control, and donkeys, for transport, would have been common fixtures in many households, seamlessly blending into the domestic environment. They were more than just animals. They were part of the family, sharing their lives, their homes, and their quiet moments of rest. You can almost visualize the scene, the soft glow of an oil lamp, the scent of dried reeds, and the comforting presence of a cat, its eyes occasionally gleaming in the dim light as it twitches its ears at some unseen nocturnal movement outside. The feeling of safety that such a creature would provide, even subconsciously, would be immense. It's a primal comfort, connecting you to generations past, who found solace in the warmth and quiet companionship of their animal friends. As your own thoughts wander towards the edge of sleep, You might imagine a time when the boundary between humans and animals felt less distinct, where every creature had its place in the grand cosmic order. The gentle purr of a cat, the soft breathing of a dog, these were not just noises. They were part of the ancient world's lullaby, helping people from the lowliest worker to the mightiest pharaoh drift into a peaceful slumber, their dreams, perhaps, touched by the quiet, watchful presence of their beloved animal companions. It was a comforting thought then, and it remains one now, that even in the deepest sleep, you're never truly alone. As the ancient Egyptian night enfolds you, and the faint scent of the desert mingles with the imagined presence of a sleeping cat, your thoughts drift to a deeper connection between their lives, their dreams, and the very land beneath them. The rhythms of agriculture. For a civilization so profoundly tied to the annual flooding of the Nile, the cycle of planting, growing, and harvesting wasn't just work, it was life itself, and it surely permeated their subconscious, shaping their nocturnal landscapes. Imagine yourself a farmer, your body aching from a day spent tilling the rich, fertile soil, or perhaps painstakingly irrigating your fields after the waters of the Nile had receded. Your entire existence revolved around the river's generosity, the annual inundation, the predictable flooding that brought rich silt to replenish the land, was not merely an event. It was a divine blessing awaited with bated breath. You would have gone to sleep dreaming of the water rising, covering your fields, knowing it promised bounty. Or conversely, the anxiety of a low flood could lead to restless nights and dreams of barren land. It's like worrying about your internet connection. But if your internet connection was literally responsible for all your food, the fields, once submerged, would transform into lush green expanses, teeming with life. You'd be tending to crops, like emmer wheat for your daily bread and beer, and barley or perhaps cultivating flax for linen or various vegetables. The rhythm of these tasks was slow, deliberate, and deeply connected to the natural world. Your dreams might have been filled with images of ripe harvests, of abundant granaries, or perhaps the satisfying sound of grain being threshed. These were not just dreams of personal success, they were dreams of community survival and prosperity tied directly to the land. Here's a curious little fact. The ancient Egyptians had a specific calendar tied to the Nile's flood cycle, dividing their year into three main seasons: Akhet, inundation; Pare, growing; and Shemu, harvest. Your sleep patterns, your work schedule, and even your dreams would have been subtly influenced by which of these seasons you were in. During the inundation, when the fields were underwater, many farmers would have been drafted for monumental building projects like the pyramids, temporarily trading their hoes for hauling ropes. This shift in daily routine would undoubtedly have shifted the content of their dreams too. From dreaming of plump barley, you might suddenly be dreaming of endlessly climbing ramps. Historians still debate the degree to which these agricultural dreams were literal or highly symbolic. Did a dream of a particularly large ear of corn just mean a good harvest, or did it symbolize general prosperity or even a divine favor? It's likely a bit of both, with the practical realities of their lives blending seamlessly with their profound spiritual worldview. The gods, after all, were believed to be intimately involved in the success of the harvest. You can almost feel the gentle ache in your muscles from a day spent stooping over crops, the sun warm on your back, the soft earth yielding beneath your bare feet. As darkness falls and you lie down, you might hear the distant croaking of frogs from the newly flooded fields, or the rustle of the wind through ripening wheat. These were the natural lullabies of an agricultural society, sounds that would seep into your subconscious, nurturing dreams of fertile land and abundant harvests. And as you slowly drift deeper into your own sleep, you might begin to sense the deep-seated hope and anxiety that punctuated the lives of these ancient farmers. Their dreams were not merely escapism, they were often projections of their deepest fears and aspirations, intimately connected to the rise and fall of the Nile. It was a rather beautiful, if somewhat stressful, way to live, always waiting for the river to deliver its verdict. And in their dreams they sought reassurance, guidance, and perhaps a glimpse of the abundant future they so desperately hoped for. It really makes you appreciate your grocery store, doesn't it? No dreaming, about bad crops required. As the ancient night wraps itself around you, carrying the imagined scent of fertile soil and the quiet promise of the Nile, your thoughts now turn to the profound relief that washed over these ancient Egyptians after a day of back-breaking labor. Imagine the immense physical toll of building a pyramid, hauling immense stones under a relentless sun, day after relentless day. The desire for rest wouldn't just be a preference, it would be an overwhelming, primal need. For them, sleep wasn't a luxury. It was a non-negotiable, glorious escape. You can almost feel the deep resonant ache in your shoulders, the burning in your leg muscles, the stiffness in your back. Every fiber of your being would be screaming for respite. As the sun dipped, painting the western sky in fiery hues, you'd feel a collective unspoken sigh ripple through the work gangs. The final thud of a placed stone, the last shouted command, would be met with a silent, profound sense of liberation. It's like the moment you finally kick off your shoes after a long day on your feet, only multiplied by 1,000 tons of stone. The walk back to your dwelling would be slow, each step a testament to weary endurance. You might hear the low murmur of conversations, not about the day's monumental achievements, but about the simple, immediate satisfaction of impending rest. Perhaps a quiet joke shared, a tired chuckle, reinforcing the shared bond of those who toiled together. This was the popular image of pyramid builders, enduring immense physical strain, and their dreams, you can imagine, would often be a direct reflection of this daily reality, not of grand visions, but of simple, profound peace. Here's a curious little detail. While the work was incredibly hard, evidence suggests the workers were reasonably well fed and cared for, receiving rations of bread, beer, and sometimes fish or meat. This wasn't just benevolence, it was practical. A well-fed, adequately rested workforce was a productive workforce. So, while you were exhausted, you probably weren't starving, which certainly helps with the quality of sleep. Imagine trying to sleep on an empty stomach after that kind of work. That's a nightmare no dream interpreter could fix. Historians still debate the specific methods used to motivate such a massive workforce over generations. Was it sheer faith, or was there also a system of incentives and punishments? The truth is likely complex, but the sheer scale and duration of these projects speak to a deeply ingrained cultural and spiritual drive, coupled with practical management. Even without modern machinery, the ancient Egyptians managed to coordinate efforts on a scale that still baffles engineers today. You can almost feel the gentle coolness of the desert night beginning to embrace you as you finally reach your dwelling. The warmth of the mud brick walls absorbing the day's heat would slowly dissipate, allowing the chamber to cool. You'd shed your simple linen garment, feeling the slight breeze on your skin, a sensation of pure, unadulterated relief. This was the moment your body had been craving all day, the quiet surrender to gravity and rest. As you lower yourself onto your reed mat, or perhaps a more comfortable bed if you were an overseer or skilled artisan, you would feel your muscles slowly begin to unclench. The mind, which had been sharply focused on the tasks of the day, the angle of the ramp, the tension of the ropes, the weight of the stone, would now begin its own slow descent into tranquility. There's a particular kind of deep sleep that comes from profound physical exhaustion, a heavy, dreamless slumber that feels like true oblivion. It's the sleep of the truly spent, a gift after a day of superhuman effort, and as you drift, your breathing evening out, you might almost hear the collective sigh of thousands of bodies finally finding repose. It's a peaceful hum, a silent acknowledgement of a day well done, and a quiet anticipation of the deep restorative sleep that would prepare them for yet another day of monumental endeavor. For them, the sweet release of rest was not just an end to the day. It was the essential renewal that made the impossible brick by brick, dream by dream possible. As the sweet, heavy blanket of deep sleep settles over the ancient landscape, your mind, now profoundly relaxed, begins to consider the gentler activities that would have preceded this well-earned rest. Because even after a day of hauling stones or tilling fields, The ancient Egyptians didn't just collapse into bed. They had their own unique ways of winding down, their own versions of Netflix and chill, though probably involving fewer glowing screens and more. Papyrus scrolls. Imagine the fading light, the air cooling, and the subtle shift from labor to leisure. For many, this would have involved gathering with family or neighbors. Storytelling was a universal pastime, a way to pass down traditions, myths, and even the occasional amusing anecdote. You can almost hear the soft, rhythmic cadence of an elder's voice, recounting tales of the gods, or perhaps a humorous yarn about a mischievous jackal or a particularly stubborn donkey. These weren't just stories, they were lullabies weaving themselves into the fabric of the night, preparing minds for the dream world. It's like their version of a podcast, but live and with a much more compelling narrator. Games were also a popular way to unwind. You might find a group huddled around a board game called Sonnet, a strategic game of chance and skill that involved moving pieces across a board, much like backgammon or chess. It was so popular, it was often depicted in tombs, suggesting its importance not just for earthly amusement, but perhaps even for the afterlife. Imagine playing a quiet game of Senet with your family, the clatter of the dice, or knucklebones. More likely, the only sharp sound in the gathering dusk. It was a gentle mental exercise, a way to shift focus from the day's physical demands to something more contemplative. Here's a curious fact about Senet. Some scholars believe it wasn't just a game. It was also a metaphor for the journey of the soul through the afterlife, with each move representing a step towards judgment and rebirth. So, while you thought you were just playing a game, you were actually, symbolically, preparing for your eternal journey. Talk about high stakes for a board game. It certainly puts your competitive family game nights into perspective. Historians still debate the extent of literacy among the common populace. While many couldn't read complex hieroglyphs, basic forms of writing and pictorial storytelling were certainly accessible. For the literate elite, reading papyrus scrolls, perhaps religious texts, poetry, or historical accounts would have been a common evening activity. Imagine curling up with a scroll, the flickering light of an oil lamp casting dancing shadows on the wall, as you delve into the wisdom of your ancestors. It was a quieter, more reflective form of entertainment, far removed from the sensory overload of modern media. You can almost feel the communal warmth, the soft murmur of voices, the gentle click of game pieces, creating an atmosphere of shared tranquility. There were no bright lights, no blaring sounds, just the quiet companionship of family and friends. This gentle winding down, allowing the mind to slow and the body to relax, was crucial for preparing for the deep restorative sleep that lay ahead. It was their way of signaling to their bodies and minds that the workday was truly over, and the time for rest and spiritual journeying had begun. As you drift now, enveloped by the quiet, you might picture these ancient scenes. A child nestled close to a parent listening intently to a story. Two friends quietly engaged in a game of Senet. A scholar meticulously unrolling a papyrus scroll, his brow furrowed in concentration. These were the gentle bridges from wakefulness to slumber, activities that subtly nudged the mind towards tranquility, ensuring that when sleep finally arrived, it would be profound, peaceful, and perhaps filled with the strange and wonderful. Visions that only ancient Egypt could provide. It's a rather charming way to end the day, don't you think? Much more calming than doom-scrolling. As the gentle hum of the ancient night deepens, almost whispering you into a profound slumber, your thoughts now turn to the most significant transition of the ancient Egyptian day, the arrival of dawn and the symbolic awakening from sleep. For them, waking wasn't just the end of a night's rest. It was a profound act of rebirth, deeply intertwined with their core beliefs about the afterlife and the cyclical nature of existence. It made hitting the snooze button seem rather sacrilegious. Imagine the subtle shift in the darkness. The deepest black of night slowly softens, giving way to a rich indigo, then a delicate violet, eventually bleeding into the softest pink and orange at the eastern horizon. You feel the first, almost imperceptible coolness of the pre-dawn air. The quiet sounds of the night, perhaps a distant hoot of an owl, are gradually replaced by the first chirps of birds, signaling the impending arrival of Ra, the sun god. This wasn't just a sunrise, it was a divine event, a daily miracle of creation. For the ancient Egyptians, sleep was often seen as a temporary death, a journey into the duat, the underworld, where the soul, the ba, could wander and even face judgment. Waking up then was a triumphant return, a rebirth into the world of the living, mirroring the daily rebirth of Ra as he crossed the sky. So, as your eyes flutter open, you're not just shaking off sleep. You're participating in a cosmic drama, a small personal resurrection. It's quite a lot of pressure for a morning routine, isn't it? No wonder they were so serious about it. You would rise from your reed mat, feeling the renewed strength in your limbs, the mental clarity that comes after a deep restorative sleep. The air is still cool and fresh, carrying the clean scent of the desert. The first rays of the sun, a warm golden embrace, begin to touch your skin as you step outside your dwelling. It's a moment of profound gratitude, a silent acknowledgement of the god's benevolence in bringing you back to the land of the living. This isn't just about grabbing your ancient Egyptian version of coffee, it's about celebrating existence. Here's a curious little detail. Many Egyptians would face east as the sun rose, offering prayers and greetings to Ra, welcoming his light and the life he brought. It was a daily ritual, a reaffirmation of their faith and their place in the divine order. Imagine starting every single day with such a profound spiritual connection to the universe. It probably beats scrolling through social media while still half asleep. Historians still debate the exact nuances of these daily rebirth rituals across different social classes. While we have detailed accounts for pharaohs and priests, it's harder to pinpoint the exact practices of the common person. However, the underlying belief in Ra's daily journey and the soul's nightly wanderings was pervasive, affecting everyone's worldview. From the grandest temple to the humblest mud brick home, you can almost feel the warmth of the rising sun on your face, the gentle breeze carrying the promise of a new day. The sounds of the camp begin to stir, the rhythmic thud-thud of distant work starting up again, the low murmur of conversations, the clatter of preparing for another day's toil. But this time, these sounds are not signs of impending exhaustion. They are the vibrant symphony of renewed life, of a world brought back from the temporary oblivion of night. As you continue to drift, your own mind preparing for the deeper sleep to come, you might find a quiet beauty in this ancient perspective. The simple act of waking elevated to a sacred event, imbued with meaning and hope. For the ancient Egyptians, every dawn was a fresh start, a gift and a reminder that even after the deepest slumber, there is always the promise of rebirth, illuminated by the benevolent light of the sun. It's a rather peaceful thought to take into your own dreams, isn't it? That every ending is just a prelude to a new beginning. As the echoes of the ancient Egyptian dawn gently fade, and your mind settles into the deep calm before true slumber, we arrive at the culmination of our journey, how these myriad facets of Egyptian life, the toil, the rest, the daily rituals, and crucially the dreams, intertwine to ultimately shape something as monumental as the pyramids. For the Egyptians, these colossal structures weren't just piles of stone. They were embodiments of dreams, both literal and symbolic. Imagine the pharaoh, waking from a powerful dream, perhaps a vivid vision of his own ascension to the stars, or a directive from Osiris himself to secure his eternal journey. These were the sparks that ignited the grand ambition to build. His dreams were not fleeting images, they were divine blueprints, etched onto his soul, and from there, projected onto the very landscape. It makes you wonder if any architect today would accept a dream as the sole basis for a multi-million-dollar project. Probably not. For the workers, the dreams might have been simpler, yet equally vital. Dreams of a successful harvest, providing enough food for the family, ensuring their survival. Dreams of strength and endurance, of safe passage through the demanding work, or simply dreams of deep, unbroken sleep. These personal aspirations, collectively held, fueled the day-to-day effort, transforming individual hopes into a unified force capable of moving mountains, or rather, stacking them into monumental pyramids. It's a bit like a really large team-building exercise, but with more stone dust and no trust falls. Think back to the dream interpreters, carefully deciphering the nightly whispers. For a pharaoh, their interpretations could validate a vision, giving divine sanction to the immense resources poured into pyramid construction. For the common person, understanding their dreams provided reassurance, guiding their actions and reinforcing their faith in the divine order that encompassed even the most strenuous labor. The belief that their work contributed to a cosmic plan, revealed in dreams, provided a profound sense of purpose. Here's a curious little detail often overlooked. The very alignment of the pyramids with celestial bodies, the stars, the sun, suggests an underlying dream of cosmic harmony and ascension. These structures weren't just tombs. They were believed to be powerful engines for the pharaoh's journey to the afterlife, pathways to eternal life among the stars. It's almost as if the pyramids themselves were solidified dreams, physical manifestations of their deepest spiritual aspirations. They didn't just build them, they dreamed them into being. Historians still debate the degree to which every aspect of pyramid design was divinely inspired versus practical engineering. It's highly probable that a combination of deeply held religious beliefs, powerful dreams, and incredibly sophisticated practical knowledge led to these architectural marvels. The dreams provided the vision, and the ingenuity of the people provided the means. You can almost feel the quiet intensity of that ancient belief system, where the line between the sacred and the secular was beautifully blurred. The sweat on a worker's brow, the precise calculation of a master builder, the grand vision of a pharaoh, and the mysterious whispers of their dreams, all were threads woven into the colossal tapestry of the pyramids. These structures stand today as a testament not just to human labor and engineering, but to the power of collective belief, driven by visions that came to life in the quietude of the Egyptian night. As you now find yourself drifting into your own deep slumber, you might reflect on this extraordinary legacy. The pyramids, silent guardians of an ancient world, were perhaps the grandest dreams ever realized on Earth. They embody the hope for immortality, the desire for divine connection, and the sheer unwavering belief in the power of the unseen. For the ancient Egyptians, their nocturnal journeys were not just personal experiences. They were the very bedrock upon which their eternal monuments were conceived and ultimately constructed. So, as you close your eyes, perhaps your own dreams will be touched by the quiet, enduring majesty of those ancient visions. Your journey through the silent, sandy stretches of ancient Egyptian sleep is now nearing its peaceful conclusion. The distant hum of the desert, once a faint whisper, now feels like a gentle, rhythmic breath, a natural lullaby that has comforted souls for millennia. You are drifting effortlessly on a tranquil current of time, leaving behind the dust of construction and the profound visions of pharaohs. The very air around you feels softer, imbued with the quiet wisdom of ages past. Imagine the last slivers, moonlight dissolving into the vast, velvety darkness, carrying away any lingering thoughts, any small worries that might cling to the edges of your awareness. The details of the day, whether ancient or modern, are becoming hazy, indistinct, like footprints slowly erased by the wind on shifting sands. You are not merely resting, you are sinking into a deep, profound stillness, a space where the boundaries between past and present, between your consciousness and the soft embrace of sleep, gently dissolve. Your body feels heavy yet weightless, perfectly supported as if floating on the calm waters of the Nile under a million stars. The whispers of pharaohs, the echoes of stone moving, the rustle of papyrus, these are now just distant, comforting. Murmurs receding further and further. All that remains is a gentle, enveloping quiet. Allow yourself to be drawn into this peaceful void, knowing that you are safe, secure, and completely at ease. Every breath is deeper, every muscle relaxed, every thought a soft cloud drifting away. Let the ancient magic of Egyptian sleep now claim you fully. Drift. Let go. The pyramids stand, timeless and still, rooted in the earth, reaching for the stars. And somewhere within their silent majesty lie the echoes of the dreams that built them, now part of the eternal slumber of history.